Good morning. It's a pleasure to represent Amazon as a presenting partner for the Workforce Development Panel as part of NJBA's Public Policy Forum. As the second largest employer in the US, Amazon believes that we have a role to play in creating good jobs. And those good jobs comprise three things: a good wage, $15 minimum wage an hour, egalitarian benefits from day one, and the opportunity to add skills to experience so that employees can create a career. And really, as you build those skills and experience together, we do that through a variety of innovative programs that are collaborative, like our apprenticeship programs, Amazon Future Engineer, AWS Educate, and our Career Choice program, all of which were built in partnership with 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. Our goal is to help employees build their career, whether that's inside Amazon or with another company, because we know that creating those career paths in a collaborative manner makes good business sense, because as qualified workers fill those in-demand roles, businesses grow and thrive, and career pathways grow wages and add to community vibrancy. Workforce development is core to NJBA's mission, and Amazon is looking forward to working with the association to continue to grow New Jersey's talent pipeline. Thank you for joining this Workforce Development Panel, and enjoy the conversation.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Emigholz, the Vice President of Government Affairs for NJBA, and we have assembled a panel of esteemed experts on workforce development. Workforce development is a key component to a stronger and fairer economy in New Jersey. I think workforce development is what makes us go, and improving that needs to be a focus as we strive to grow our economy. It's also something that everyone can agree on. Politically, yeah, affordability and regulatory burdens matter, but workforce development is the win-win component of economic growth with which everyone agrees. And to discuss how we take advantage of that, we have a panel this morning that hit different aspects of workforce development: the K-12, education, Department of Labor, higher ed. And to start that off, I'm going to just introduce everybody's name, have them say a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to get going into questions that hit upon each of you individually, and a couple that I would love to hear from all four of you. So first up, we have Assemblywoman Mila Jasey. She is the chair of the Assembly Higher Ed Committee, vice chair of the Assembly Education Committee, and somebody that I've worked with before on workforce development, higher education issues, is a champion for workforce development in the legislature. We need more people like her. So Mila Jasey.
Good morning. It's really a privilege to be able to be part of this panel this morning, because this is something we've been talking about for a while. And Chris mentioned it. Certainly Aaron and I have worked together on this, and others on the panel. I think, you know, in a strange way, the pandemic is giving us an opportunity to rethink what we mean by workforce development and how we connect all the pieces: higher education, community colleges, vocational programs. And I think we also need to talk about what's happening pre-K to 12. So I think this is, I'm excited about the fact that we have this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the other panelists have to say, and I'll join in as appropriate.
Thank you. Next up, Lesley Hirsch, who's an assistant commissioner at the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. She's in charge of the Office of Research and Information.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here among an esteemed panel. I look forward to getting to know Assemblywoman Jasey and Dean Williams from Amazon, but know Dr. Fichtner and you very well, Chris. Yes, I do agree with everything Assemblywoman said, and I would even add to that and say that we have that we've put workforce development on the front burner as a society, as a culture, mainly because we're really witnessing tectonic shifts in the economy, and because we really are noticing that people are being, some people are being disproportionately affected by the pandemic, and some businesses are being disproportionately affected by the pandemic. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Lesley. Next up, Dr. Aaron Fichner, the president of New Jersey Council of County Colleges.
Chris, thank you. And this is really an honor to be here with this panel to talk about this really important topic. I'd agree with everything that was said previously, that the world that we are leaving behind in this pandemic, we're going to go into a very, very different world. And we really need to seize this opportunity to find new ways to work together to make sure that all residents in New Jersey have access to the education and training to be prepared for that new world. I think we're going to see new occupations, new ways of work, and it's critically important to have this discussion and find new ways to work together. Thank you, Chris, for putting this together. Thanks to NJBA for your incredible leadership, bringing everyone together on these important topics. And I also look forward to a really important discussion this morning.
Thank you, Aaron. Last but certainly not least is Ardeen Williams, the Vice President of Workforce Development for Amazon's HQ2. Amazon is an important member of NJBA, important member of our economy now and certainly going forward. Ardeen?
Thank you, Chris. It's really a privilege to be here. The folks on this panel represent the coalition that that's really required to build a strong and vibrant workforce. And Amazon is committed to that development as, you know, the second largest employer in the US with 34,000 of those jobs right here in New Jersey. We really see three components to a good job. One is a good wage. So we have a $15 minimum wage, egalitarian benefits from day one, and the opportunity to add skills to experience, whether that's through upskilling or reskilling. Our employees have access to programs that we can only put together with the collaboration of higher ed, of K-12, of other businesses and the government entities as well as not-for-profits. And so that coalition represented here is what's really critical to building that vibrant workforce that makes the business economy strong.
Thank you, Ardeen. I think something important about this panel too is I've worked with Assemblywoman Jasey on higher ed and ed issues and training issues. I've worked with Lesley on K-12 issues and actually at the Department of Labor. I've worked with Aaron at the Department of Labor, and now he's at the county colleges. So I think you said it perfectly, Ardeen. It is a broad spectrum of issues, and all of them are key in workforce development, and you can't leave any of them out. I think New Jersey has a strong pipeline across the board, but we need to strengthen that and make it better to help companies like Amazon and all of the employers throughout the state. I guess to get us going and where we are right now, Lesley, I wanted to start with you and talk a little bit about something that you can't ignore when we're talking about any issues that affect employers right now, and that's the coronavirus. The pandemic has and continues to wreak havoc on New Jersey's public and economic health. How has it impacted unemployment in New Jersey? What were the industries that were hardest hit? And anything else you want to talk about the impact on the economy?
Sure. So as we know, on March 21st, with Executive Order 107 in response to the spread of COVID-19 in the state, Governor Murphy issued stay-at-home orders and locked down non-essential businesses. This resulted almost immediately in massive unemployment, the likes we haven't seen since the Great Depression. In the first month alone, initial unemployment insurance claims totaled 566,000, more than 5 times higher than the monthly peak of 89,000 during the Great Recession of 2008-2009. In just that month, we saw more than twice the total number of claims filed in 2019, the whole year. And sadly, New Jersey's communities of color have been hit harder during this unemployment crisis in our state. As a percentage of covered employment, Black and Latinx workers are 5 percentage points more likely to be on UI or unemployment insurance than their counterparts in other racial and ethnic categories. Now, 34 weeks later, the Department of Labor has paid out $19 billion in unemployment benefits to more than 1.5 million New Jersey workers in need. When unemployment rate figures started coming in, we began to see the effects through that measure. So in just 1 month, from March to April, New Jersey went from a near historically low unemployment rate of 3.7% to a then record high of 15.9%. But then the unemployment rate reached another historic high of 16.8% in June, with an estimated 766,000 unemployed people. Truly staggering and worth a moment of pause. Now that we've been climbing out of that trough, the unemployment rate is now 8.2%, higher than the nation, but less than half of that rate in June. During the 10-year expansion prior to February 2020, New Jersey added 406,000 jobs. We lost an unparalleled 831,000 jobs during the employment collapse of the next 2 months, more than double the state's 10-year employment gain. The hardest hit industries are, of course, those that require close customer contact. Accommodations, which would be hotels, and food services, which includes catering and restaurants and fast food, and specialty food stores. Healthcare, particularly ambulatory care, which is outpatient care, doctor's offices and so forth, and daycare centers, as well as retail trade. In fact, of the UI claims, the unemployment insurance claims that we had at our peak, food services and retail workers accounted for 1/3 of all of those UI claims. As of October now, which is the most recent data we have in terms of recovery from coronavirus-related job count lows, hardest hit have been accommodation and food service, as we said, healthcare, social assistance, administrative support services, government, as we know with the layoffs and furloughs, and arts, entertainment, and recreation. As a percentage, the greatest losses, those were in sheer numbers, and as a percentage, the greatest losses have been in arts, accommodation, education, administrative support, which is mainly employment services we're looking at, and other services, which includes the nail salons, the hair salons, laundry services, and so forth. We have recovered a little more than half of the jobs that we lost at this point. Other services, manufacturing, trade, transportation, and utilities have recovered the highest percentage of those jobs that those respective sectors had lost in March and April. Professional and business services and education and health service sectors continue to lag behind the state's overall recovery. That said, I think one of the things that we need to understand is that compared to our other recessions over the last 30 or 40 years, this has been, and not surprisingly so because of the nature of the recession, this has been the fastest recovery so far. But we're not looking forward to, we're seeing some great deal of slowdown in that recovery in most of the measures that we're looking at, both in jobs recovered, in decreases of continued claims. We'd like to be seeing those continued unemployment insurance claims decreasing a lot more quickly than they are. They're actually quite stagnant over the last several weeks, and in unemployment rate as well. We'd like to see that 8.2% come down.
Thank you, Lesley. That is sobering data, but it's data that we need to, I guess, grapple with. Assemblywoman Jasey, hearing that, what's your vision, the legislature's vision for the future of workforce development issues and initiatives post-pandemic, and how has this vision changed because of COVID-19?
That's a tough question, Chris. I would say that, in the past several months, we've passed legislation that completely restructured HESA, but student loan debt is still staggeringly high. Even though we've passed codification of the community college opportunity grants, which helped tremendously, and the seamless transfer from community college to the 4 years, the allure of going to college is still there. And it's interesting, I've said for many years that we need to make all of the different pathways as attractive to our young people as possible, whether it's vocational, whether it's going to community college or 4 years. The debt that young people have encumbered during the last number of years is staggering. They can't start their families. They can't buy a home. They're not making enough money to handle the loan debt. And so this has really widened the divide. And I believe that in the legislature, more and more legislators are realizing that this is a problem. So the question is, how do we resolve the problem? And I tend to be an optimist, And therefore, I look at this, as I said earlier, I look at this pandemic as an opportunity for us to rethink and restructure and to give our young people and their parents the opportunity to rethink their futures. And by that, I mean to understand more about what's out there in terms of business and how do I get engaged in developing a career, and the fact that a career is not forever. You know, we change careers all the time. I myself have had several different careers, and I'm sure most of you have as well. So I think it's an exciting time. And while the unemployment rate is sobering, I think this is our opportunity to come together and to propose innovative ideas, new ideas, and I do believe the legislature and the governor's office are prepared to work with all of us to do this. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck, and I don't see that as an alternative. I think we have to go forward, and I'm looking forward to your suggestions and certainly a partnership. I don't see us standing in your way at all. You have ideas, we have ideas, but you are the professionals. And we also have to make sure that the higher ed players are involved in this as well, because the higher ed community is, they're suffering tremendously. I've talked to a number of the presidents, and whether it's private or state colleges, the debt that they're incurring because their campuses are empty because of what they've had to do in order to combat the pandemic may force many to close. And I think we have to come up with some innovative and creative ideas in how to use those facilities, how to use the resources to keep as many people connected and involved as possible.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. Couldn't agree more. And speaking of higher ed players, we have a key component of higher ed. Aaron, what role do you see community colleges play in upskilling and reskilling New Jersey's workforce during and after the pandemic?
So we have 18 community colleges in New Jersey. They serve about 300,000 individuals every year, both in non-credit and in credit programs. So community colleges play an incredibly important role. You know, the advantage of community colleges, they're very flexible, they're very connected to the local community, driven by the needs of employers. And so community colleges have always been there for people at multiple stages of their lives, whether it's a high school student looking to start their career in higher education, or it's someone who is in the middle of their career looking to make a change, or someone who's lost their job looking to retool. So our community colleges have a really important foundational role to play, but we only can do that in this changing world if we continue to build strong connections with high schools, with four-year colleges and universities, with employers, with community-based organizations. We believe that we have a real opportunity here. I agree with Assemblywoman Jasey. This is an opportunity for us to work together in new ways, and the data that Lesley presented is incredibly sobering. And now is the time really for us to seize this opportunity to find new ways to work together to make sure, as Assemblywoman Jasey said, that we've got more pathways for individuals, for students to earn credentials and degrees that help them move up the ladder with on-ramps and off-ramps. We need a much more flexible system of education for people to come back to college, to get a credential, to continue to get credit so they can earn a degree. We have a very, very well-educated workforce on average, but I think we would all agree that we need to get more New Jerseyans a post-secondary credential that's valued by employers to help them earn a family-supporting wage and help to grow our economy. So we see the challenges as great, but the opportunities are really important if we can find new ways to work together.
Thank you, Aaron. I want to turn it over to Ardeen, who, representing a major employer like Amazon, is on the receiving end of the great work, important work that is coming out of Assemblywoman Jasey's committee, coming out of the community county colleges, coming out of the Department of Labor. Ardeen, Amazon is in a unique position right now, given the reliance of everyone on the services and products that Amazon's delivering during the pandemic. Are you able to fill the positions that you have right now, that you need right now? What types of positions is Amazon looking to fill?
So it's a great question, and I really appreciate the comments that everyone has made, because you've really highlighted how critical the collaboration is in order to ensure that that New Jersey continues to have that workforce that's skilled for the jobs. You know, fueled by customer demand, we have had a tremendous increase in the number of jobs that we've needed to fill, almost 300,000 since the beginning of the pandemic, and the vast majority of those have converted from temporary to permanent roles. The good news is Amazon has a type of job for just about everyone, from those entry level to middle skill, all the way up the ladder to the highly technically skilled machine learning or artificial intelligence specialists. So, you know, across the country right now, we have more than 100,000 jobs open in our fulfillment networks, as well as about 30,000 jobs on the corporate side. So demand is significant. And again, the good news is those are jobs that offer a minimum wage of $15, those benefits from day one, and access to both reskilling and upskilling. And you know, the reskilling programs that we have are available to our hourly workers are really dependent on those community and technical colleges and providers of post-secondary credentials. We have technical apprenticeship programs. We run a first dollar program that pays 95% of the tuition for our associates to attain a credential or the skills that they need to get them into a role that is in demand in the local community that pays at least 10% more than we do. We do that in partnership with the broader community in terms of identifying what those roles are, so that we're creating that pipeline to ensuring that those pathways do in fact lead to whether it's stackable credentials or experience, that there's actually career opportunities for people. You know, Aaron said on-ramps and off-ramps, so that as life circumstance presents itself, people have the opportunity to add credentials or skills to experience and continue to move up that career ladder. So right now, I think we are in a we're privileged to be in a position to be very aggressively hiring. Our workforce staffing organization partners very closely with organizations who have been impacted. We talked about hospitality and hotels to help bring their, you know, where there's a geographic connection, to bring those folks on to work with us and to give them access to those, to that wage, the benefits, and the upskilling.
Thank you, Ardeen. Yeah, with all those positions that you need, I know there's a lot of benefits that you guys are offering your employees that you touched upon. Are there other initiatives that you guys have pursued since this pandemic has started? Any new initiatives? Anything to make a career at Amazon more appealing, that you're trying to attract people to do all those jobs you have?
So I think that what the pandemic has done, you know, it has really accelerated the rate of change and the focus on the changes that we've made, both in the establishment of a recognized apprenticeship program, as well as our upskilling program and reskilling. And the critical piece there is that we are working very closely with other businesses, because the people that we are training are in many cases leaving Amazon. You know, our goal is to help people create a career. We hope that's with Amazon. In some locations it's not. And so we're partnering very closely, whether it's with the one-stop shops in the state, with community and technical college, to ensure, and the local employers, to ensure that the jobs we're skilling people for are available. Because if the job isn't available locally, upskilling or reskilling doesn't make a lot of sense, because you're expecting people to pick up and leave a support network and go elsewhere. And so I think what it's done is really, the pandemic has put a focus for us on how critical it is to make sure that we are tightly connected, whether it's with an intermediary that helps us understand what those in-demand jobs are, or with the local business community and the community technical colleges and credential providers, so that we are in fact training or creating that pipeline that goes into other businesses. So I think it's simply put a stronger focus on what we've been doing.
Thank you, Ardeen. So getting back to the legislature, you've talked about one of the things they've done already, but Are there other things, thinking about issues like the K-12 digital divide, thinking about higher ed folks that are struggling out there and help they need? Are there other legislative initiatives that you see that could be implemented to move the needle in New Jersey and help that workforce development pipeline to get more quality employees to the Amazons and other employers that need it?
Well, I don't pretend to have the answers to those questions, Chris, but I think what we need from the business sector is we need to know what you need, and we need to build the relationships and the partnerships so that we can be more responsive, and so that our K-12 folks, for example, have an idea of what their students' possibilities, what their futures are, and what students are capable of doing. It's interesting. I know several, excuse me, I know several high school teachers, and one of the things they talk about is the fact that their high schoolers don't really have a great sense of what's out there, what the jobs are, what they need to be doing to prepare for those jobs. And therefore, I think we really need a more interactive conversation and planning with the business community. This is something that we've talked about on and off for years, both in the legislature and in different meetings that we've had. But I think that the benefit of the pandemic, if there's a benefit, is that it's forcing us to really act on those ideas and to make it happen. And so my pledge to you really is whatever you need in terms of legislation, let us know, because I truly believe that legislators are looking for answers, and we don't pretend to have those answers. The business community really needs to let us know what you need from the education community, from the K-12 community, as well as the community college level and the 4 years. Everybody's looking to, I don't know how to describe it. They're trying to figure out where they fit in and how they're going to survive. And sometimes necessity is the greatest motivator. And we can't just keep cruising along with students going to college and incurring debt and not being able to pay that debt off. So I guess the short answer is we don't have any legislation pending right now, but we're certainly willing to, if there's legislation that you need to support what you need to do, and we're willing. I'm listening to you. I don't have the answers, unfortunately.
No, thank you very much, Silva. No one has all the answers, and we appreciate your willingness to work with us, and we will keep that in mind, and we'll look forward to working with you and your committee and the legislature as a whole on this. But I guess two initiatives that the employer community is supportive of, and looking to Aaron and Lesley. First one is right before the pandemic, Aaron announced the New Jersey Pathway and Skills Collaboratives. And that's something that we're very supportive of, and would like to see how the state legislature, executive branch can better support the good work that Aaron and his county college is doing. Aaron, can you tell us a little about this initiative?
Sure, Chris, and I think it's a good connection to what the Assemblywoman just said. I mean, we desperately need to find a structure to work together across educational institutions and levels. We need to do a better job of understanding the needs of employers. And so we've launched our Pathway and Skills Collaboratives. We're focused on 4 key industries: global manufacturing and supply chain management, health services, innovation, technology, and energy. We believe those are 4 key industries to our state's economy. And the structure of these collaboratives is structured around the community colleges that want to work together. So we've got 16 to 18 community colleges working together on each of those industries. We've added high school partners, predominantly the vocational technical high schools are critical partners in this effort. And we are adding workforce development boards, community-based organizations, and four-year colleges to really work together to create a common inventory of all the programs that exist to prepare people, and then to work with employers led by an industry leadership team and working with Lesley's team to really understand cutting-edge labor market intelligence and data to really understand how these industries are changing and to map the common pathways that exist in these industries built around what are the credentials and degrees that are most valued by employers like Amazon, and how do we make sure that those are integrated into our curriculum, whether it's at a vocational technical high school, at a community college, a four-year college, and that we've mapped out those connections so that a 16-year-old who's in high school who knows they want to work in health services has a sense, and I agree with Assemblywoman said, we need to do a better job of making information available, career information available to people so that a 16-year-old in high school who wants to work in health services can see the pathways that are available to them, can see that they could earn a credential at their local vocational technical high school, that they could transition to a community college and then get a job, or they could go back to college and move on to a four-year college with on-ramps and off-ramps. And so we welcome everyone to work with us on the Pathway and Skills Collaborative's efforts. We're recruiting employers to be on our industry leadership teams, and we're looking to build a strong network of secondary, post-secondary, community-based organizations, workforce boards to really work together to tackle this issue in a collaborative way. So we're very excited. The time is now to really find new ways to collaborate and make sure that we understand where our industries are going and that we are responsive in the education and training world to make sure that everyone has access to the education and training that can get them a job and to get them back to work if they've lost a job.
Thank you, Aaron. Another initiative that NJBA is very supportive of is something Lesley's been working on her team, the New Jersey Career Network and Data for the American Dream. Lesley, can you tell us a little more about what these initiatives are and maybe ways that we can help?
Sure. As you know, both initiatives also started well before the pandemic, but couldn't be more important in light of our discussion today and the data that I presented earlier. The New Jersey Career Network was originally outlined in the governor's transition plan and has been featured in his economic and jobs plan since then. The Innovation Office at the Governor's Office team is leading on that initiative, though they do work in close partnership with a number of us at the Department of Labor. As envisioned, the Career Network will include career management and advice with access to virtual and in-person coaching. And that's actually the first module that's currently in beta testing and available now. But it will also have some additional apps that will help job seekers navigate their careers, complete online applications, optimize their resumes, and so forth. The New Jersey Career Network, when complete, will supplement the services currently provided through the workforce development system. So now Data for the American Dream comes in, and that's an initiative that emanates out of my office, again, working closely with the Innovation Office. It's supported by a foundation grant that allows us to digitize applications from New Jersey's training providers. And that will allow us, once we digitize them, and we're in the process of doing that now, to publish that information and data about this training in an open education data platform called Credential Engine. Now that's important because this is something that will allow us to create transparency and also take a stand on quality rating. So once we have this data up on the Credential Engine, we'll be able to show the information in an application also in beta called New Jersey Training Explorer, particularly focused on low income and people with less than a four-year college degree, so they can find training that fits their personal needs, like childcare, night hours, wheelchair accessibility, language, location, as well as their professional goals. So we're using this opportunity to review and strengthen, as I mentioned, the quality assurance measures that we have in place for training providers. And I think Assemblywoman Jasey made some reference before to debt, which is certainly one aspect of consumer protection, is certainly an aspect of quality assurance. So first, we want to prepare or help consumers identify which programs are better or worse in terms of wage and employment outcomes, equity, alignment to demand, and a number of other factors. And second, we want to protect consumers from programs that promise more than they can deliver and put consumers at risk of amassing debt that they cannot pay off. Interestingly enough, and I know Assemblywoman Jasey knows this, is that some of the worst student debt that we have is actually attributable to short-term training programs and not necessarily to four-year college degrees. Because also, I think a great deal of the reasoning behind that is because we're also talking about people who are in less of a position to handle that debt going forward. And finally, working with New Jersey Council on Community Colleges through its Pathway and Skills Initiative, Data for the American Dream is helping us to build the foundation for digitally tagging educational programs with the kinds of skills that they're actually teaching people to be able to perform. So this will help us ultimately build an interactive website that will help people navigate the career pathways in the sectors that Dr. Fichtner and the Pathway and Skills Initiative are focusing on, and that we're focusing on in alignment with NJCCC at the Department of Labor. So we're beginning, with a career map that will be focusing on 3 pathways in the manufacturing sector, including one that's kind of spanning beyond the manufacturing sector that looks at logistics and supply chain management. And we also will be looking at healthcare. I know that these are not the perfect names of the ones that Dr. Fichtner is focusing on, but we're getting there. Healthcare, tech, and TDL. So I'm a very firm believer, and again, I'm just building on what Assemblywoman Jasey said, that everybody has to know themselves to start out with. Kids in high school, most of us only know about teachers, doctors, lawyers, and the things we see on TV and what our parents do. So we need to know what we like and what we're interested in and what we're good at. And then we need to know what's in the labor market and what's available. And then we need to understand how to navigate that and be able to kind of navigate the delta or the change, the gap between what I have and what I can do and what I need to be able to do. And that's the goal that we're really trying to reach ultimately with this career map. So the Data for the American Dream is the Training Explorer, and the career map is going to be the next piece of New Jersey Career Network that we'll be working on.
Thank you, Lesley. Thank you, Aaron. And as someone, I think the projects that Aaron and Lesley just outlined, they are the initiatives that BA would be happy to support. We'd be happy to see that the legislature drive more support to, and whatever the legislature can do to further the great work that Aaron, Lesley, and the council and the department are doing is what we need. I mean, BIA, just take an example of the manufacturing caucus in the legislature. BIA has long been a partner of this manufacturing caucus and sat through these manufacturing hearings over the years. And we hear a lot of issues, and a lot of things are behind why manufacturers may struggle in New Jersey, but we hear about workforce development more than anything else. And the more we can do, whether it's through the great work of the county colleges, through the great work of the Department of Labor, to help our manufacturers have the skilled workforce they need, then we're all going to be better for it. So I guess similar to what we've been talking about, and we've heard collaboration over and over again, it's something NJBA has long championed, the idea of collaboration among all the stakeholders, thinking about business, academia, government, how can they better work together. And so I wanted to kind of turn it over to each of you and how we can get to that. And maybe I'll start with our dean. I guess you're in a unique position, unlike the rest of us on the call that are very New Jersey focused. Obviously, Amazon as a major employer in every state and every nation in the world. What are you seeing in terms of collaboration? Are there things that New Jersey does well? Are there things that New Jersey needs to improve upon? Are there states that are involved in HQ2 that are doing a much better job that we can learn from?
I think so. So thank you. I think that the good news is, what's been outlined here is actually a best practice. This idea that you start with K to 12 and you think about what are the foundational skills and capabilities that every student needs to be digitally literate. Not everyone needs to be able to program. I mean, software development is a profession, but as a society, the line between STEM or technical jobs and non-technical jobs is blurring. So building that foundation in K to 12 is incredibly important. We know that students have to have that mathematical foundation as well as a strong command of oral and written language in order to be successful. And we see that across the board. The second piece then is to connect that with the community colleges, whether it's on the for-credit side or the trade side, and focus it on knowledge, skills, and abilities. And those knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for the pathways to move into in-demand jobs. And what you've just outlined is very consistent with what we see nationally. For our program, in no particular order across the country, we see IT, healthcare, and commercial driving or transportation. And then in those smaller buckets, and I don't want to say smaller, just below the top three, advanced manufacturing technicians, as well as administrative like paralegal. And those kinds of jobs absolutely require the specific skills. And to be able to identify to the workforce or potential workforce what the job entails, how do I discover it? What are the capabilities I need in order to be successful in that job, whether it's the, attaining the skills and then the certification process. And then how do I go about doing it with a reputable provider of that training? And so what New Jersey is outlining and what the association is supporting is absolutely a best practice. And we see that in the work that I do with the Washington Education Oversight Investment Board, as well as with the Greater Washington Partnership in the District of Columbia, Virginia, and Maryland, as we look across. And it's really about building a high fidelity pipeline that is diverse and provides equity of access across the state for the kinds of jobs that provide a sustaining wage and access to ongoing skills. And so I think the good news is New Jersey is on that path, and what you've outlined are absolutely the in-demand careers that we're training for. The piece that I think that where the association can play an incredibly strong role is making it easier for both businesses and education to have that conversation about what are those critical skills, because we get into a debate about, well, I need this software language or I need this capability. And it gets really difficult for higher ed, particularly in the community college, while they're very flexible, to try to accommodate a wide variety of employers who have very different flavors. And so the ability for the association to bring employers together along with higher ed so that we can have that conversation about what really are those core essential skills, and not be as focused on the individual sort of nuances between them is critical, because that's how we serve the workforce best, in exposing opportunities, making it clear what those pathways are, and making the training accessible and affordable to success.
Thank you, Ardeen. On collaboration, Lesley, from the executive branch perspective, or someone Jasey from the legislature perspective, anything you want to add?
I would add that we have to also figure out how to engage the parent community in this, because one of the things that's frustrated me for a number of years now is we've sold this idea of everybody has to go to a four-year college, everybody has to get a degree. And I think we need to rethink that and give young people the opportunity for experiences. Some of that may be the college experience. Perhaps they don't need to be there for 4 years. Perhaps a better alternative is a 2-year community college start and then a transfer. And we've made that transfer more seamless to a 4-year college, so that when they're a little more mature and they have a better idea perhaps of what they want and where they're going, they can also have that social experience of living on a campus perhaps for 2 years and meeting their cohort. In other words, we as those who are making decisions about what we're going to finance and what we're going to support and what we're going to promote, we need to help parents as well as young people see these multiple pathways and understand that, a choice I make at age 18 is not going to dictate what happens to me for the rest of my life. And to understand that there are ways to come in and out of all these different careers and training and educational opportunities depending on your life circumstances, and that there are programs available to help do that. I think I have to say, I think that the pandemic is the one positive I can say about it is it's forcing us to look at everything differently and to come up with more creative, imaginative ways to fulfill the needs of our workforce, but also of our society. And I think especially in middle school and high school, students need more opportunities to see what's out there. They just don't know. And all they know is what they see on YouTube or TV or what their parents are doing. But they don't understand that there's a big world out there that has really, I think, has a spot for everybody. You know, maybe that's the Pollyanna in me, but I honestly believe that, you know. And I'll tell you something. Here's a little story. So my mom is 96 and she lives with me. And so I have had the opportunity to visit many different doctors over the last few years, you know, and fortunately she's pretty healthy. But the most interesting conversations that I've had have been with the paraprofessionals who have worked with her. And I always ask them, how did you get involved in this? How did you decide to become, you know, a physical therapist assistant or a doctor's assistant? And it's really interesting and kind of sad that the way in which they've made these decisions has really been by chance. And when I talk to them, I ask them, where'd you go to high school? What did you think about doing after high school? Basically, those conversations had not been happening in their lives. And they just kind of figured it out. We as the adults, I think, can do a much better job of showing them what the possibilities are. And I think the possibilities are really wide and endless. So this is a great conversation. And I will tell you that I will pledge whatever support you need legislatively to get this through, to get whatever initiatives you have through.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd love to chime in if I can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, as we know, the world isn't really divided. We make it so, right? In order to tackle really big social and economic problems, we have to work together. So, you know, I've been saying, and I will, you know, Dr. Fichtner can plug his ears now because he's heard me say this over and over again, is that I feel like we really need to agree on a common playbook that'll serve our common aims and stay focused on them. And I think Assemblywoman Jasey is absolutely right that this is an opportunity for us not only to take a look at what's happening and how we help people right now, but how we transform our system so that it works for people, not just now, but going forward. And so I think this is a different opportunity than we've had. And, you know, from my own years of experience in this field, I've seen, you know, Sandy and the recession. And I think what we tend to do is we tend to try to deal with the problem. And, you know, it's because there are really big problems that are at hand, and we don't really think about the future and how to really transform ourselves structurally. So I feel like we've already identified what the common aims are. We want to help people become qualified for jobs that are out there, to develop themselves, for support, to support people and provide opportunity for those who've been left out, and to support growth and advancement for people, just to name a few. So, you know, I think we need some measurable benchmarks. Of course, I wouldn't be a researcher if I didn't say so. But we also have to all put skin in the game. So I think colleges, you know, and this is what we're outlining today. And I do think, our dean, that New Jersey is exemplary in this respect, just from my own exposure to other states. There are only a few other states who are really trying to make this happen. But colleges can modify their educational offerings, especially community colleges that have the ability to be a little bit more nimble, particularly in the non-credit area, because they don't have to go through long curriculum review processes, but they can modify their educational offerings, be responsive to labor market demand, and that they could start communicating and through rich partnerships with industry like Amazon. Businesses can commit to providing this intelligence that the colleges need, but also by engaging in relationships with the other players, with the schools and the colleges, workforce development system, providing work-based learning opportunities like internships and apprenticeships. And I'm very refreshed to hear the investment that Amazon makes in its training and talent development. And I think that's yet another one. We have seen quite a bit of divestment over the past several decades in training less educated workers, and much more a greater focus on training and professional development at the higher levels within business. And then, finally, I think we, as the executive branch, can work together to fill in the gaps where, and I hope this isn't a swear word, but where the market will not. So, this is through CTE training, the program alignment, and commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, just to name a few. So we can't do this by working in parallel tracks and at cross purposes. The only way we can do it is through communicating and through relationship development. So if we continue to operate as if we're all in separate funding streams and on one-time transactional opportunities and not think in the long run about how we change the way we do things, then we'll end up where we are now. As the saying goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So I think there are some opportunities. There's some great opportunities here. And, the Pathway and Skills Initiative, the work that Amazon is doing, the legislative commitment to consumer protection and to K-12 and CTE programming is all, moving in the right direction. And I think what we just need to do is keep on having not just these forums where we talk to one another, but where we focus on how to achieve those benchmarks that we'd like to achieve.
Thank you, Lesley. And Aaron, I know that county colleges have always been a leader on the collaboration front with the work you do on the with the K-12 side, with business side. Do you want to add anything on collaboration?
Well, I think this is a really excellent panel. I think, as Lesley said, we have an emerging playbook to really tackle the challenges that we face as a state. And it's an exciting opportunity to find new ways to work together. I think that the panelists who touched on a whole set of themes that are really, really important. I would say, just to reiterate, 2 points that I think are really critical for us to focus on. One is this issue of alignment, which we talked a lot about today. And we're very hopeful that our Pathway and Skills Collaboratives, working with Lesley and her team and with employers, can really create that vehicle, that connection point for us to align the curriculum to make sure that we're building those on-ramps and off-ramps, those partnerships. And to Assemblywoman's point, we need to make sure there are no dead ends so that a student can start in a non-credit program, transition to a credit program, and get that bachelor's degree at some point in time, that everyone has an opportunity to move up the career ladder. And then the second thing we need to do is to make sure that that all of our residents have access to education and training, high quality education and training. Assemblywoman has done incredible work to make sure that the Community College Opportunity Grant Program, which ensures that community college education is tuition free to people in households making less than $65,000 a year, is a permanent program. So Assemblywoman, thank you for your leadership on that effort. And the work that we're doing in community colleges to build stronger connections with our workforce development boards will also ensure that more people have the opportunity to get the education training that they need. And the partnerships with employers is critically important as well, to make sure that employers like Amazon have the connections and the partnerships to help their current employees get the education and training they need. So we have a real opportunity here. The challenges are great, but I think, as Lesley said, we have an emerging playbook that if we seize this opportunity to all work together, that we can make a more equitable and more resilient New Jersey for all of our residents. So I look forward to working with all of you. Chris, thank you at BIA for all of your incredible leadership. Let's seize this opportunity to do some important things for our state.
Thank you, Aaron. Before I just turn it over to all of you for any final thoughts you wanted to add on the importance of workforce development and what we're doing. I just want to throw something else I was thinking of as we were all talking is I think we're on the precipice of seeing more federal stimulus, federal relief package coming to the state to help in our response to the pandemic. And if this federal money could be geared and directed towards workforce development efforts, would any of you have thoughts on how to best do that? And I know I've worked with Aaron and Lesley on a recent grant application, and I know that the legislature always has ideas how to spend money, right? and I'm sure Amazon, you probably would have ideas on is there something that we can do to, is there a gap? Is there something missing with the quality of workers that we're putting out there in the pipeline for Amazon to take advantage of? Any thoughts on that, or any thoughts that you want to close with on concluding this panel?
Well, I would like to thank you for including me in this because I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I've learned a lot this morning, and it gives me hope. It gives me hope for the families out there who are really struggling. It gives me hope for the young people who are coming along and probably wondering what the world is going to be like for them, and for their parents and for their communities. I think I would say carpe diem, let's seize this day, let's seize this moment. And it's also very, very important to focus on the communities that currently lack the resilience to respond and who may be giving up and may not have the kind of hope that we would want them to have. So while we're making all these plans, I think it's really important for us to understand that the disadvantaged communities, communities of color, communities that have really suffered at the hand of this pandemic, because the majority of people who live in those communities work in essential services and have really been impacted either by losing jobs or by becoming ill themselves and losing loved ones, need to be remembered. And we need to make sure that resources are distributed in a very equitable way. And I don't pretend to have those answers, but I will say that I can give you the support that you need legislatively. And I look forward to continuing to work with each of you. Chris and Aaron, I know well, and we have worked together over the years. Lesley, it's wonderful to meet you. And Ardeen, I'm very excited by what you've had to say about Amazon's presence and your global view, really. It's been a great morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I think we've all learned a lot. Anybody else want to add their closing comments?
So Chris, I'd just say thank you. This, what I know I've heard this morning is a great example of what makes Amazon proud to be a member of the New Jersey business community. We've invested more than $14 billion over the last 9 years, and with those 34,000 employees, that's a testament to the collaboration and good work that the state and the BIA is doing. And it doesn't mean by any means that we're done, but what it means is that there is that best in class collaboration and opportunity to do even more. And we are proud to be here and looking forward to putting our shoulder to the wheel and contributing.
Thank you, Ardeen.
Yeah, I would add thank you also, and for the opportunity to hear the views of my colleagues, even those of you who I know very well. I've learned a lot as well today, as Assemblywoman Jasey said. I think there are a couple of areas that we could extend our best practice in with some stimulus dollars, and certainly we have a really serious budgetary need in the state. But if we're talking about focusing on recovering our system and finding opportunity for people to reattach to the labor market and find family, a career, a meaningful career with family sustaining wages. I think probably the most effective ways are going to be, through on-the-job training, through apprenticeships that we've already, I think we've showcased as a state a really great commitment to apprenticeships in non-traditional areas, and by investing as NJBA and the Secretary of Higher Ed and the Department of Ed and NJCCC and all of the alphabet soup, we all have been, and the statewide Employment and Training Commission, we all have been collaborating to try to develop this vision around a grant proposal that we had, unfortunately, we did not win, but we are going to continue and focus on this vision of setting a statewide collaboration in place that actually has tentacles out into the regions and has a focus on forming these collaborative partnerships all over the state so that we can team up and reach this vision of helping everybody who's been left behind and those who are suffering the most during this crisis. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. Aaron?
And thank you, Chris, and thanks to my panelists, Lesley and Ardeen and Assemblywoman Jasey. I've learned a lot. We've all learned a lot. And I'm leaving this discussion feeling that we really do have a moment here to really pull together. And I hope that if we do receive additional federal stimulus dollars, that we use them in a way that brings us together, that brings high school together with community colleges together with our four-year partners, with the workforce development boards, and most importantly with the business community, to make sure that the business community is heavily involved in leading this discussion about how to make sure that we are building those pathways for more of our residents. So we have a playbook. We've got a number of important initiatives. I look forward to working with all of you to advance our Pathway and Skills Collaboratives work and to collaborate with Lesley and the work that she's doing, Data for the American Dream, the Career Network. This is a really important opportunity. The challenges that we face are great, but I think there are great opportunities ahead if we continue to pull together, and look forward to doing that. Thank you, Chris, and all of your colleagues at BIA for your leadership on this really important issue. We can do this together.
Well, thank you very much. Everything was well said. I appreciate learning from all of you, and NJBA looks forward to working with all of you. We hope that we can take some of the great ideas that we heard this morning, harness them into what will help the New Jersey workforce be more prepared for the economy that emerges after this terrible pandemic. Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you, and have a good day.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.